Welcome back to Steve's Project Car Garage. My name is Steve. We're going to continue working on the Overdrive here. We have the first main portion of it disassembled, and in this video we're going to go ahead and dive into further disassembly of the annulus, inspection of the bearings, general cleanup, and then an overall assessment of everything that we're going to need to order to get this guy put back together and functioning properly. So grab yourself a cup of Jitter Juice and hang out and enjoy. All right, next thing to do is go ahead and just inspect the planet carrier and teeth. All looks pretty good. I'm not feeling any slop in any of these. Just a little bit of up and down movement, but that's it. Nothing side to side. A little up and down movement should be okay. The side to side does what you worry about, and there's not really much on these. So I would imagine this is going to be good to just get a nice clean, and then we should be able to go ahead and put it back into service. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the speedometer. Now I know that this is broken. I actually already pulled this off once, and I noticed that the wire that connects it is no longer in one piece, and so this pretty much pulls right out. It's a little frayed in there, not much holding it on. So what I need to do is go ahead and back off this nut, go ahead and remove this, and I can pull the whole thing out. All right, got that removed. For those interested, I used an 11/16 to just kind of grab along the side here and just pull. And yeah, there we go. There's our speedometer drive gear. All right, so we removed the split pin. I did that earlier. And nut securing the coupling flange, and press the annulus forward out of the rear case. All right, so I got to remove this nut. Let's see if I can actually do this. Oh yeah, that backs right out. Okay, cool. I was worried that would have been a torque monster, but it wasn't. Okay, that lifts right up. Okay, just going to give that a nice little push. It seems to be working to actually remove the annulus. So, let's see if I can do that again. There we go. All right, so annulus came out. This is the annulus. This bushing was on here. That's where the speedometer gear meshes with. Very cool. All right. So, here's the rear housing. There is a bearing in the back. Oil seal. There's a great big circlip in here. Oh yeah, it's a big one. We're going to have to see about how I remove that. Because I don't think that these little tools are going to do anything here. Maybe, but I don't think so. No, that's at full lock and they don't do anything. I'm gonna go put this in the vise and see if I can just get in here and try to walk that circlip out.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
All right, so a little third hand action and we can walk this guy right on out. There we go. All right, so it's the next day now, and I've gone ahead and done a bit of cleaning between the last section and this. And so we're just going to kind of pick up where we left off though. So in the last bit, we went ahead and removed this snap ring from the annulus. And now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this this copper grease flinger. Initially I had some issues pulling this out because the grease was just kind of all stuck together. But I just used a set of needle nose pliers and just pulled it straight up. So I've already actually cleaned this up and we put it off to the side. So the next pit here is going to be this unidirectional clutch. And so this is a bit of a tricky little piece. And I want to actually see if I can take this out in the reverse order of how it's put in. To put it in, and we'll talk about this when we get to that stage, essentially what you need to do is put this bearing together and then you fit a rubber band to it. And as you push it in, it pulls the rubber band off. The reason that you do that is because this is all kind of just held together with some spring tension. And so potentially when I take this apart, it could make quite a mess. So we're going to go ahead and just exercise caution. I'm going to see if I can try to get like a rubber band around this now to just try to keep the bearings all together so it just doesn't go flying everywhere when I pull it out. So let me get a rubber band. Let's see if we can pull this out without making a big mess. So we're going to start just by kind of trying to pull it out a little bit. I can feel the spring tension on it as I do. You know what? And I already pulled it up too far and all the bearings are just starting to go everywhere. Oh well. So you can kind of see the challenges that you'll deal with pulling these up. But essentially you have all these little these bearings that are in here. So let me get that put off to the side and we're just going to collect these bearings. We're going to put them on this paper towel. Also, you'll notice that I'm using the actual housing of the rear of the Overdrive as a stand. So I got the annulus just kind of pointing, sitting up in it, and it just kind of helps hold it all straight. I don't have to worry about trying to use a vise or anything like that on there. So this is the clutch, and inside of here there's a spring, and the spring is kind of what provides tension on it and allows it to work. But in short, you've got this guy that will sit in here like so. And there's a little hole for this to clip in. That's spring loaded. And then you've got all of these guys that go into it. And it's a real balancing act. I've watched a couple of videos of some folks trying to put this together and they end up doing a fair bit of cursing, as to be expected. But essentially what we do is we take a rubber band. I don't know if we'll be able to do it or not with this rubber band, but we take the rubber band, we put it together, and then we pretty much just slowly put in one bearing at a time until it's got all the bearings in there, and the rubber band holds it in place. And then as you lower this guy in, the process of lowering this in pushes the rubber band out, and boom, there you go. So that's the, this is the actual clutch itself. So we'll get that all cleaned up. We're going to inspect all those bearings, make sure it's good. And if everything's good there, we'll go ahead and proceed with just reusing those parts. Inside of here, you're going to have also a thrust washer, which I should be able to pull out. Got a fine little pick tool here that, see if I can maybe just use to poke it out. There we go. And that's the inside of the annulus, and really you don't get a lot deeper than that. There is a bushing in here, but I'm not going to go ahead and try to tear that bushing out, and I don't really feel that there's much more of a need to go any deeper. So we're going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up, give it a good thorough inspection though, and then we will proceed with removing the bearing from here. So let me go ahead and do a little bit of cleaning, and we'll catch up with you in just a minute. All right, so this is my cleaned up annulus. I have gone to some pretty incredible lengths to try and get this guy clean. I found that, and I can find a little bit more, that every little nook and cranny in this thing has crud in it, and there's a lot of little tiny nooks and crannies in here, and I've done my best to get it good and clean, at least as clean as I can get without getting crazy on it. Just a lot of hand scrubbing, a lot of work with a soft plastic brush, and it's coming along. Now, I also went ahead and I did inspect the bearing here on the back, and this bearing seems good, although it just gave me a little bit of a funny noise. Well, I don't know, it seems good to me. What do you guys think? I put a little bit of oil in it and it seems good. So I think we'll end up keeping this bearing. I went ahead and cleaned up the speedometer gear. I put the spacer on, and I put the washer slash shim on here. This is what helps determine the end float. Now, as long as the bearing thickness doesn't change at all, I can definitely check on this, but essentially what I need to do is just measure the thickness of the bearing and whatever replacement bearings I get, and if they're relatively close, I should be able to just stick with this. But that's the annulus. The bushing in here, I'm not going to be able to get out without damaging stuff, so I'm frankly going to just leave it. Again, inside of here, there was a ton of dirt and debris, and I worked pretty hard to get that all pulled out. So I'm pretty happy with the condition of the annulus at this point. The next thing that's going to be left, though, is to go ahead and pull out this old seal and then drift out this bearing that's in here. Kind of thinking I might be able to just drift the bearing out itself. This bearing I'm definitely going to be replacing. It just, I don't know, it doesn't feel that good. But also at a minimum, we need to replace the seal because I know the seal's dried out. So we're going to go ahead and pop this stuff out next. And we'll give that bearing a good once over and see if it's salvageable or not. And go from there. All right, so I got the rear bearing pulled out. Doesn't seem bad. I'm going to look at price and probably just replace it, because I can feel a little bit of a wobble in it. So it's the rear seal. This is just going to go honestly right into the bin. But yeah, it was very perished, very dry, and in need of replacement. This is the rear casing. I did go ahead and get it all nice and cleaned up. I used some parts cleaner and just, got the inside of it pretty schmidt. So I'm relatively happy. I am going to just go ahead and get these little nooks and crannies here, because there's still some schmutz that's in here that needs to get pulled out. But and I'll probably hit this with a little bit of sandpaper just to nice smooth and clean up this sealing edge. I'm not going to worry too much about the outside. At most, I might just take a wire wheel to it but not like a wire wheel on a bench grinder, but just like a hand wire brush, actually, to just clean it up a little bit. I'm not going to go too crazy because obviously it's going to be under the car and really won't be seen all that much, except for maybe myself and the few oddballs that decide they want to look under the car. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and stop here for the night, but we will continue on with getting this guy over here cleaned up further when I return. So we'll check in with you in a few.
The following day.
All right, so it's the next day. I've been plugging away actually intermittently while on break at work, and I got a good bit of stuff done, and so I won't get you caught up on that. So first things first, I went ahead and I was able to get these pistons removed. These are the pistons that push on the main springs that cause the clutch to engage and makes everything work. And so I went ahead and used compressed air to push these out. And so I have no knowledge of how this stuff works. I haven't done it before, so this is all kind of trial by error. But I know that there was this hydraulic piston. This was the relief valve that sits in here in the top. And if you remember earlier, I wasn't able to figure this out on how to remove it. It said to use a piece of wire to pull it out, and it didn't go anywhere. So it actually does kind of, it drops down into here. And this is the lever that is actuated by the cylinder, this guy. And so this pushes, and this causes the clutch to engage because it pushes up on this, which then causes a flow of hydraulic fluid. I want to say it's like 400 foot-pounds or something like that, which then actuates these pistons out. And so I said, well, if you just follow the channels, follow the lines, you should be able to do this with air. And so that's what I did. What I did is I actually took compressed air, I took my air hose, and I just put it in here while this was actually still in place, because I really couldn't get this to move. And so while that was in place, I was able to do a little bit of compressed air, and it first popped this cylinder right out, and just blunk, came right out. And so that was great, and I was like, oh, cool. So what I did is I put the piston back in, and I actually held it in place, and I had it push this one out. So once that piston came out, I was able to do this one, and then I actually used a little pick here to just kind of pry at the relief valve to push it up a little bit. And so I just kind of gave it a little bit of height, so that way I was able to then reach in with my needle nose and just pluck it out like a tooth. Nice and easy, no force required, and it actually worked out really, really well. So if you ever get stuck trying to figure out how to pull out these pistons or pull this, a little compressed air, and it come right out. So I got that taken care of. As I've been going along, I've also been just using compressed air to try to blow out all of the passages that are in here, because there's so many little veins and passages that are just harboring all this old fluid and also contaminant, which is what we're really trying to clean up here. So I've been just going through, honestly, and little by little cleaning it all up and removing as much as possible. I also went ahead and removed the adjuster. I'm going to give this a nice clean up, get that nice and clean. I've got to remove this gasket too. I don't have any plastic razor blades, so I need to try to just see if I can do this by hand without using anything like that, or just go ahead and get some ordered and pick some up, honestly. But because you don't want to use anything metal, obviously, on this, because then you can damage the sealing surface, and then you have leaks, and you're going to have a bad day. But anyways, that's got to come off. And then outside of that, I just got a lot of fine detailing to do here. I've got to figure out if this guy is necessary to remove or not. I don't think it is, because it just seems to be a plug. But again, any opportunity to clean where I can find things that are harboring any kind of dirt, grease, muck, I want to get it clean. Because honestly, I don't want to take this apart again. So I said I was going to go ahead and inspect all of the bearings. And I decided that there's no point to inspect all the bearings. I'm just going to replace them all. So I went ahead and I pressed the bearing out of this guy. I used my gear puller to go ahead and remove the bearing off the annulus. And yeah, so I have a nice collection of bearings that, I mean, honestly, for anything except for maybe a transmission, I want to hold on to these and see if I can find a good use for them, because This is probably $100 worth of bearings right here just alone. And if I can find a use for them that's not automotive necessarily, I'm going to do so. One of the things I've always kind of thought about trying to do with old bearings is to try to make like a little English wheel or something. So, I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to throw those out. I do have new rollers coming as well for the clutch. So we'll get those replaced. I placed an order with John over at Quantum Mechanics. And for, it was about $480 total, I'm going to get a replacement sliding member. That's going to be relined. This sliding member, while it may have plenty of meat on the bones, John made a really good point that these sliding members do go ahead and wear out just from age. They get dry. And if you take a look real closely here, you can actually see an example of that where it's just kind of falling apart. This clutch material is really no good anymore. So for $275, he sells these as a replacement. There's a $50 core charge. You send him back the old one and he'll refund you that $50. Bearing set, I think, was about $150. There's also a gasket set that comes along with it. I had to get a new solenoid because this one I just didn't want to take the chances on. While granted it did work and actuate, it's 50 years old. I don't want to do this again. I'm just going to replace it. And then he's also getting me another lay shaft for the transmission. The lay shaft that I got on Facebook was not that good. It's kind of pitted. It just doesn't feel smooth. It definitely had some rust on it at one point, and it was given like an acid bath or something. And I'm just not going to put that in the transmission. So it doesn't make sense to have that in there. So he's giving me another one for $32 and change. So really, it's not that bad. Yes, it is more than I wanted to spend. I really didn't want to have to replace this guy, but honestly, I don't want to also have this fail. So that's where we're at. So those parts should be arriving in just a couple of days. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video. All right, well, there you have it. So thanks so much for tuning in. Please make sure you go hit that subscribe button, click the bell to get those post notifications, and give me a little thumbs up if you like what you're seeing here. Rebuilding this Overdrive has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get it all finished and put back together, and then we can slap it in. Because honestly, once this is done and the transmission's finished, the next thing is the engine. I've already been talking with Chris about some of the work that we're going to do on the engine, and he's going to come on over and he's going to help me out. So right now, it's the week before Christmas. I'm hoping to be diving into the engine, fingers crossed, first week of January or something like that, somewhere around then. So make sure you definitely subscribe because that's going to be a lot of fun as well. Anyways, that's about it. Oh, this also is going to be coming out just right about the 3-year anniversary of the start of this project. It's crazy to think that it's been 3 years since I started this whole thing, but it's what it is. This is what happens when you do car restoration very, very, very part-time. I wish I had the ability to go ahead and dedicate, even 20 hours a week to this thing. I would have had it done 2 years ago, but you do what you can with what you got for time. Anyways, so just remember, when working on project cars like this, make sure you don't set yourself some really high standards for your time frame, and don't be that dreaded previous owner. Cheers.